Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Mega Group. My name is Linda Sylvester and I am your host for the Mega Groups. Our group today is scheduled from 3 to 4:30 p.m. Before we begin, let's go over some information about this webinar. This group will operate in webinar format. You will not be able to turn on your video or microphone during this group. You are counted in attendance as soon as you logged in. You do not need to follow up with us regarding attendance. If you lose connection, try to rejoin as soon as possible, and you will still receive your incentive even if you get disconnected from the webinar. All right, everyone, let's begin. We have a very exciting group ahead of us today, so let's go over today's goals. So first, we'll have our opening ritual. Then we'll go into program reminders, incentives, card activation, and schedule reminders. Then we'll have a showcase of work from your small groups. We'll have an animation industry guest speaker with us today, Paul Law, and we'll then go into our closing ritual. All righty, it's time to introduce my co-host for the Mega Groups, Lisa Clementi.
Thanks, Lyndon. Hi, everyone. So great to be back here in our Wednesday mega session space together. And we're going to get started with our opening ritual. And Lyndon, we've been working in our small groups this week, building environments. So for our opening ritual today, we wanted to ask all of you, if you can travel anywhere right now, which environment would you like to go to? So of course, we are going to be doing this in the polling format. So there's some choices that you'll have. So go ahead and click on the link in the chat and you can enter your response. And we're going to see this happen in live time. Super excited.
Can't wait.
So there are quite a few choices here to choose from. And we always leave something for other. So you'll see we've got a deserted island, a magical forest, an undiscovered planet, an underground city, a VR world, the Jurassic era, candy factory, a labyrinth library, an art museum, and elsewhere. So some other place that's not listed here. Wow, we're seeing this grow already, Lyndon.
Yes, Magical Forest is in the lead.
Oh, it so is. There's no competition here yet.
At all.
I don't know what's coming in second here.
I think it would be Candy Factory Candy Factory is next.
All right. And then it looks like elsewhere. So something that's not even listed here.
Yeah. Then we have Ground City and a desert.
I wonder, Lyndon, where would you want to go out of all these choices here?
Well, I think that I would like to go to an undiscovered planet.
Nice. Let's see. I think the Labyrinth Library and Art Museum, they're lagging behind here. I know I would love to go to the Jurassic era. I'd love to go hang out with some dinosaurs.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. It looks like, all right. I think elsewhere has beat out the Candy Factory. It looks like there's places that are not listed here that folks would like to go visit.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun to be thinking about being able to travel to these very interesting environments.
Yeah. If it was possible, I would definitely do it.
And it looks like we're landing on Magical Forest is the majority here for our group here today.
Yeah, they're the winner.
Well, thanks everyone for participating in this fun opening ritual. It's cool to see where we might want to land today. So we're gonna dive right in, and we're going to go through some of our program reminders. So, and this is surrounding our incentives. So if you have not received your incentive card, please email incentives@theanimationproject.org. And if you registered for this program late, your card is on the way, but will obviously be delayed. So funds for groups attended from March 15th to April 8th were loaded on your card actually today, April 14th. So by the end of today. And funds for groups attended from back in February, from February 22nd to March 11th, which included the orientation, were loaded to your card on March 17th. And payment for any makeup classes will not be loaded onto your card until May 5th. You received an email with the activation codes and instructions back on March 10th. And you may also look up your activation code on the TAP website using the password program1. So for activating your card, there is an online activation. You do not need your activation code. You may also activate your card through a phone activation. You do need the activation code provided. Now, a reminder, this code is not your Social Security number or any number related to your Social Security number. This is just a randomly generated 4-digit code unique to your card. So when you call to activate your card, you will need that activation code.
Now it's time to go into schedule reminders. So our last mega group will be Wednesday, April 21st. Small group programming will continue through April 29th. Time really does fly when you're having fun. We are excited to work with you through April, and we will miss you when this program ends.
That is so very true. Well said, Lyndon. So, what if you missed an orientation or missed a group or still have incentive questions? Please visit our website, www.theanimationproject.org, and you'll see a link in our chat right now that'll lead you right to our FAQ page where there are lots of questions and answers readily available there.
Who to contact? If you have questions about incentives, you can contact incentives@theanimationproject.org. If you have questions about scheduling or attendance, you can contact program1@theanimationproject.org. And if you want to make up a session, you can contact program1@theanimationproject.org.
Awesome. Thanks, Lyndon. So before we get to our showcase, just a reminder that for today, we will not have a visitor for our Friends of TAP this week, but next week, we will be introducing you to our friends at RealWorks. But over to you, Lyndon, for our showcase.
Thank you so much, Lisa. So now it's time for us to see some of the work that was created in our small groups.
Wow, Lyndon, what did you think there? I'm amazed.
Yeah, I really love the quality of the work. It always like it always actually makes me happy every time we have these mega groups. This is like one of the best parts of the mega group to me. Actually, like seeing the work that the participants create.
Yeah, we just want to congratulate you all on and for sharing your creativity in our TAP groups and your amazing work. It's so awesome to see your characters come to life with all their movement. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. So now it's time for me to introduce Kat Galaski, TAP's Industry Outreach Advisor.
Hello there, everyone. It's such a pleasure to see you all here this afternoon on this lovely Wednesday afternoon. It's my pleasure to join you all, and it was also such a pleasure to equally see your wonderful showcase and your contributions. Yeah, I guess we'll just sort of hop right into it. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the wonderful Paul Liao. Paul is a senior character artist, and he's currently working for Amazon Game Studios. And we're really excited to have him and to have him chat through his role within the industry. So it'll just be a moment, I think, before Paul joins us. There you are. Hello. How are you?
I wasn't sure if someone else was going to do that or I had to press it. So there it is.
We want this to be like a collaboration, if you will.
Yeah. So
thank you so much for joining us today, Paul. It's such a
no problem. No problem.
You know, I'm conscious that you're on quite the busy schedule, and so we really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. So so here's a little taste of industry stuff. In the middle of a workday, and I've already had to respond to many character fixes throughout the day already. So yeah, it's like 4 characters in, and it's only lunchtime. So there you go.
Well, we've only just begun. I'm sure your day's only just begun.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I kind of wanted to sort of jump right in and have you perhaps, I know I'm conscious that you will be working throughout your time with us. So as Paul says, you are kind of in real time working on a myriad of projects at this time.
Yeah.
But before I sort of have you delve in a little bit further as to some of the projects that you've worked on, I'd love for you to share your story on how you entered the industry.
Yeah, sure. So so actually my trajectory is a lot more like not preordained, but it's a lot more planned than other people's. A lot of people don't know what they want to do for like so many years in their life. I knew what I was going to do since I was a teenager. So actually, I guess some of you guys are teenagers. So ever since I started drawing. Well, I guess in high school, I was taking art classes in outside of school already, and then so I wanted to be an artist since I was 14, and my art training has started since I was 14, and pretty much is a pretty like almost linear line to where I am now. The main difference is I guess I didn't plan on being a computer artist at the time, but this is also I am old, so this is another thing. So I am old. So at the time, it wasn't all this stuff. All this industry didn't exist. It was, this. I went to high school. Well, I guess when I started my art training, it was 1994. So this was the internet had just begun. So there was only chat rooms for like pretty much like let's just say very niche. Let's just say very niche users, very niche users at the time. So it wasn't a thing. My father had a computer store. He was of a small suburban town. He had a PC warehouse, which was a local computer store, and then so he sold computers, and he knew that the future was going to be computer related. So I wanted to be an illustrator. I was good at painting. I was good at drawing. I hated computers. I hated computers because that was the family industry. And then I really disliked all the kids that would just think of like today's like comment section of YouTube. And then that would be the sort of kids that would sort of convene around a 90s computer store. It's just like the sort of enthusiast and sort of these little like trolley kids. So, so I didn't like them at all. So I was like, I didn't want anything to do with them. But I did like art. My dad was like, hey, just you can do art, but you got to do it with computers. And SVA was probably the preeminent program, at least in the New York area, that had computer art. I mean, Parsons had something. There's a couple other schools with something, but they're pretty. I would almost call it theoretical. They didn't have any actual practical anything. And actually, that it wasn't even my first choice to get into SVA, because at the time there was, of all the schools I applied to, the only one that didn't have a home test was SVA. I was like, no home test. It's like they could let anybody in. This is terrible. So I looked down at SVA, but it was a last minute sort of like thought to apply to SVA, and then I ended up being very grateful that I did, because it got me into the computer art department. So with that said, the computer art department at the time, we're talking about 1998 when I went to college. This was, oh boy, Maya did Maya did not exist yet, just so you know. All the stuff you guys do today, there was no Maya, not yet. Maya didn't come in until maybe 1999, year 2000. The computer I had was the fastest machine anybody has seen at the time. It was a dual 333. 333 is not even 1000, and all the numbers that we're talking about were like one thread is like when they say how many threads you have on your machine, one thread is many thousands. So we're talking about like, I don't know, think of like a current computer, like your phone is like Jeff Bezos's money compared to like the speed of this computer back then. So it's not even in the same, it's many orders of magnitude at the time. Also, here's another thing. If you think about how big your file is, like at the time, and not having a zip drive at the time, which don't exist anymore, 100 megabytes was like so much memory that that was just like, you can't even figure out how to fill it up. So it was just a different world back then. So yeah, it was, I almost didn't want to stay in the computer art because it was so janky at the time. But my junior year, also this was around Y2K. So people were like, oh, you can't get a job unless you know how to make websites. This is also an era of websites at the time that was, I guess it's probably too young to know, but at the early websites were really, really ugly. They figured out the most flashy, stupidest way to give you like this song and dance thing before they let you go to the next page. So it was all about this sort of pizzazz, which actually went away. It's actually very much like what in the past that people thought in the future people would like want to have video calls because it was like that's what they showed in sci-fi, but then it actually got simpler because people want less clutter. Same thing with websites. People thought that they wanted this, but they actually just want one click to the next page, simple. That ended up being the thing. And also people don't talk to each other on phones and videos anymore. I mean, now we do, but you know, it was like, you know, phone, like you'd rather text rather than have a call, all this other stuff. So this is like a trend towards simplicity that also .com burst. So I guess you don't have to know how to make a website anymore. I also hated that because I can't script. So, but we had the precursor to a 3D Max class, and what I recognized at the time was I was like, wow, this is really, really time consuming and really terrible. But if I spent enough time on it, the results is kind of correlated to the amount of time I spent on it. So I was like, I'm okay with spending time on stuff. So that's what I did.
Actually, Paul, if you don't mind my interrupting you briefly, for those of us within the space who may not know what 3ds Max is, could you kindly share?
Yes, so 3D Studio Max, well, Max still exists. So it's like a cousin of Maya that's more popular in the game industry and more popular in the biz dev industry, which what I call that is like architectural. it's under the Autodesk family of tools. So Autodesk owns a lot of tools, and Maya is just one Poke card in its whole collection of Pokemon, so to speak. And also, whichever we're like, so Maya and also the whole VFX industry, we're like the weakest Pokemon in their deck. So we're definitely like the, I don't know, Kakuna or something, like the one that doesn't move. I don't know. They don't care about our existence at all, which is actually explains why they don't. I mean, we're not part of their business plan. So that's why if you look at Maya, that's how often they don't update it. That's why it is. You know, if you're wondering why is Maya so crappy, and it's just and that's why it's just because we're window dressing to their business. But their core business is actually in so if you think about any politician, when they talk about, hey, what's important in what type of jobs that a politician would talk about, it's always manufacturing jobs. And what manufacturing jobs really mean is building things, and that's what makes a country, you know, rich and all that stuff. And that when you build something, you have to make it on the computer. So the core company, the core business for Autodesk is making houses and cars and anything that needs to be manufactured in a physical product. And we make their brochures look nice, and we have movies and all that stuff. But in the pie, we're very small. Just so you know, that you're wondering why your software isn't updated at a very fast rate. That's why. So, you know, it was a revelation when I realized that why is it that it is the way it is. But yeah. So anyway, I mean, so I get out of school. So I go to school for this. I get my thesis, and I graduate the year, you might know this number, but 2001, which is also, actually, I graduated 2002. My senior year is, you know, around September 11th, you know, 2001 is my senior year. So 9/11 happens, and so that was the first recession I've been through. This is my third recession I've been through, by the way. So this is like, it's kind of BS that I was like, wow, in my career, I've already been through 3 recessions. Yeah. I was like, all right, I guess I know the name of the game. This is how it goes. So, so recession number 1, I was a kid out of school. It was very difficult for me to find work. And it wasn't, so here's the thing, here's a couple of things I didn't get right going to school. So going to school, the curriculum at SVA at the time, well, actually, unfortunately, still is the curriculum of SVA now, is to create a thesis project. And the thesis project is a short film starring you and everything you. So at the time I was like, oh, my thesis project is so demonstrates so many cool skills that I have that, you know, is so important and all that stuff. Turns out nobody actually cared about. So nobody actually cares about the story. It's just they don't. I mean, they hire, if they wanted your story, they would hire you as a writer. If they hire you as a CG artist, they want you for your CG skills, which actually makes a lot of sense. I started out as sort of like knowing how to do everything.
And did you focus on being a generalist, or did you focus specifically on
I started as a generalist because I actually liked it. I like to do everything. That was my training, and at the time, I would say in the industry at the time, it was smaller. So having generalist skills actually made more sense back then because there was less people there was less studios that were so big that you would have a specialist in just doing one thing. There's a lot more hodgepodge of people figuring it out. With that said, so it was more appropriate to be start out as a junior generalist at the time. Currently, I would say the opposite is true, that being a generalist, unless you're actually I would say if you're actually not that good at stuff, or you're kind of okay at, you can be a generalist, and there are people hiring for generalists, but you're also the first one fired because kind of not that great at anything either. So I mean, it's sort of like, I would say like, look at what you like to do. It's most important thing is that I've realized later is, I mean, at the time I was good at modeling. I considered modeling like too easy at the time. I was like, oh, what? I mean, but everybody can model because that's what they teach you in school. However, that's not, I thought modeling was just kind of like an easy throwaway skill set. But that was not true. I didn't realize until I got in industry that other people were not that good at modeling compared to me. So I was like, oh, well, but what I was actually considered generalist skills were, I was not, a fast animator. I was, uh, I liked rigging, but my rigging was really about making corrective shapes. And it's really more modeling extension, not really like the core of rigging. It's not like I didn't deal with scripting. I didn't deal with orienting joints. I didn't automate things. I sort of manually did these things. Those are the signs of not a good rigger. So, and I didn't, my lighting was like, it was like, I don't know, it's some basic stuff from school. It wasn't some professional lighting system. This is also before ray tracing was a thing, so it wasn't like, yeah, this is how bad it was back then. It was Maya software rendering. It was even mental ray, the precursor, even mental rays, which people no longer use, was not to come out for another year. So yeah, it was very difficult to make anything look good at the time. So like, I guess at the time you couldn't tell somebody was good because, or bad.
Although
So
times have changed effectively, which is
yeah, now it's pretty obvious if you can or can't do stuff because it either looks good or if it doesn't look good. Well, actually, that's not, well, even, nah, actually, let go back to that. Maybe not true either. Maybe I would say it's easier for me, things to look good, but also it's also, the standard has gotten much higher. So it's easier to, I don't know, I guess it's always going to be hard for somebody starting out.
Well, I think this could be a nice little segue because you've got such a wealth of experience behind you, and
Yeah.
your career has developed quite exponentially over the past few years alone. And I'd love for you to share some of the projects that you're proud of that you've worked on more recently, so as to offer some amazing visuals for our participants within the space.
Okay, so
'Cause I think
I might fast forward a little bit through how I got before I show the stuff, how I got there. Okay, so I would say there's a lot of especially early CG. I sort of got stuck in like old school a little bit too much, but so the industry in New York City, which I stayed for most of my career, has always been not that high end. It's because of who the patrons of New York City is. New York City is all advertising town. It's, if you watch Mad Men and all that stuff, so it's all commercials. That's, Kat, we know each other from commercials. It's almost all commercials until the last few years. There's some TV, the second-rate TV, and then there's the third-rate movie stuff done in New York. It's mainly because real estate is so expensive in New York. I mean, you can't have as many people. There's also the people signing the checks for movies and stuff like that. They're not here, versus like people signing the checks for commercials are here. So for movies, LA, LA is the breeding ground for this stuff. It's your Hollywood people, and then your games is your tech people. So you don't, and so Seattle would be the main hub of that. So just so you know that, so because of this situation, that there was never, it took many years for New York to develop as a high-end CG hub, and I happened to be sort of part of it when it was ready. So I guess I could share my screen.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that reference too. I think it's important to have context.
Yeah, so there's it's so I've done cool stuff in New York City, but it's also, I've also been at the right time and the right place, and because of, if we were in Vancouver or LA or London, because there would be a lot more movies around, there would be a lot more opportunities to do stuff like this. But in New York, because of its small nature, there's just not that many opportunities to do stuff like this. And I sort of sucked it all up like a vacuum for many years because, like, oh, who can do this? And also it became like a virtuous cycle, or I don't know, or the opposite if you're not, in the loop. I got the practice because I got the one project, and then I got onto the next project. So let's see. So Kat, what do you want me to start talking
I
about?
mean, you do have a wide range. Like I'm trying to think of what might appeal to our participants, because you have also worked in film as well,
Mhm.
and commercials, and now in games. So perhaps you could sort of
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about fun stuff, and I'll go back into some not fun stuff, which is, I would say, the more important thing to be good at first.
Jurassic World.
Okay. So yeah, somebody was talking about going to Jurassic Past, and I actually was lucky enough that my first movie was Jurassic World that I worked on. I got to go to San Francisco to ILM proper. What I call ILM proper is because the original ILM is San Francisco, and then they started branching out to London, Vancouver, and Singapore. Those were cash grabs for taxes, and those teams are definitely, they're like second and third rate teams. They're not as bad. I mean, they're still good. They're still good, but they're definitely not as good as the main branch. So I was lucky to be part of that, and I got to sculpt Ankylosaurus and Mosasaur, which were kind of great just because they were not a legacy character. So my colleagues who did the Raptor and the T-Rex, I had to make it exactly like the old one. They couldn't like deviate, not by a scale or two.
Oh,
so yeah, so I was able to put my input onto these. So now whoever grabs these and changes it for any new movie can't deviate from the movie at all. They can't deviate from my work, not one scale. No, they have the annoyance of dealing with my file. I don't. Uh, uh, Disney, who owns ILM, is super stingy with showing letting artists take and look and show their work. So the reason that's why I only have the posters which are released and all that stuff. So I can't actually show you my ZBrush files on this stuff. I actually was, I had to like make sure this was my ZBrush file, but I was looking on the bigger poster. There were some like bumps that I did right here that I'm like, oh yeah, those are right there. So I know this is actually exactly my ZBrush file that got
wonderful
in there.
What sort of time frame did you have for that particular dinosaur?
Surprisingly, not that much. So you think I have like forever on this stuff. I had 6 weeks, but but I would say I had like the actual time is actually like 4 weeks, because on such a big every company will do their pipeline a little bit differently, and I would say and that every company will do their pipeline differently, and the bigger the pipeline, the more overhead there is. So you can't just be like, oh, I'm done, I saved my file, we're done. So no, because in a bigger studio, this file has to work with every single person up and down the chain without breaking. So the process to make this a legal file in the company would be a 2-week process. No joke, an 18-step 2-week process, no matter what. But once it's in there, it's unbreakable. And it's actually a momentous, like, cheers moment when this is checked in, as they say.
Absolutely.
It's not true for I mean, I'm very lackadaisical when it comes to doing that sort of thing when it's a smaller production. And in like a commercial or whatever, I check it and I tap the guy next to me. Hey, here you go. Here it is. So and that's it. I shout across the room. But I mean, but if you're doing it all legit, then yeah, it might take a couple of weeks to just do overhead.
Thank you for sharing that. And that is pretty cool that that was like Jurassic World is the first film that you worked on since having worked in commercials. Is there a particular commercial that you were most excited about having worked on throughout your career within the industry?
There's a couple of I'll say a couple of landmarks. And we can start with some of the early ones. That this is the first one. This is the first job I worked at the mill. So this actually, here's a actually interesting thing. So this is technically speaking is the second time I worked at the mill. So the first time I worked at the mill was 2006, and their hardware system was not set up for me. They had no Wacom tablet set up. It was a room full of mice and one Wacom tablet in the whole studio at the time. It was terrible, and I couldn't actually show off what I could do. So and then I finished a job with not much to show for it, and I felt that was the one place I felt like really shortchanged, because I was like, hey, I should be able to be much more impressive than that. So this was in 2000. So this was like 5 years later. Actually, Kat hired me in, and then so I brought my own machine, which is actually not. I mean, and my own setup, because I didn't want that to happen again. And then in the matter of one day, I was able to, because they had trouble. This was in a point when ZBrush would only, this is before Dynameshing. So you could only, like people were only used to sculpting flesh. So this was the first time I had to figure out how to make something that's like to sculpt something that the program did not like sculpting. So everybody's used to wrinkles in flesh, but you can't make wrinkles in flesh out of like rock in the same way. So I had to figure out a method to make a rock giant. So in one day, people were like, "This is super impressive. How'd you make this rock so realistic?" And they were like, and then I became a permalancer. And so this is not something people realize. People think like, okay, I'm gonna work at a company, they'll give me a chance, and over the years they'll see how good I am, and blah 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 blah. That's not true. People can see how good you are in one day. You could be hired permanently after, less than, I mean, literally was like less than 5 hours. You could see, and that's not the only time that happened. It happened in another studio too. It happened actually several times. Within the first day, someone can see that, hey, you're good, and we want you back right away. And then the same thing is true the opposite way. They come in and like, oof, that's, yeah, I guess we're contractually obligated to keep you around for the next week, but you're never coming back. So yeah, so in case you're wondering what the scale of time was to impress somebody, it's only a few hours all you need if you got anything good. So so let's see another
yes.
And also
while you're
here's
sorry. While you're
I actually, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to sort of say to our wonderful participants, as you have questions, please feel free to add them to the Q&A, and we'll make sure that Paul can address them.
Yeah, I will say that also, like, I feel like it's important that I see in demonstration reels. In demo reels, this is I actually coach people on demo reels a lot, and I want to say, so what makes somebody's demo reel? I mean, this is what I could do, but it took me many years to do this, and all the stuff that I started out with is not on here. So it kind of doesn't count that, oh, cool, you have cool stuff. No, it doesn't count. I disregarded all that stuff. When you're coming out, if you're a junior, and what is important is that you can do something at a professional level. This stuff is too difficult to do at a professional level. So when I usually have people start out, I have them reach mastery at a level of making a box, a cardboard box folded, or something that's like a prop. So maybe you can't do, you know, a chimpanzee photorealistically, and you could try, but it won't look good. And not yet, you know, it's going to take you a few years before that, you know, and over before that looks good. But you know, within the time frame, you could probably get. Let me see if I can get my hard surface. Maybe scroll down to the stuff that is important. Okay, so not the fun hard surface, like the boring hard surface is what I want to show. Let's see if I still have this stuff.
Although this is quite a great spot to talk about too.
Yeah, this stuff. So this is a laptop, an old laptop. This is the sort of thing that actually spent years doing in the industry is product models. It's highly precise. I don't like to see fancy, you know. So people think, like, oh, I'm gonna make like, I'm gonna make some dragon. I'm gonna make a cool robot, and I'm gonna make this like car and like fast car. Those things don't show skill level whatsoever. It's if anything, it's actually it's over your head. You're gonna actually crash and burn. You're not gonna be able to show off the stuff. This actually is already super difficult. I don't expect you to model something this complex. I only did it just because. Let me see. This is not a good. So this is like a razor, and the details in here, if you get it right, it's like modeling a whole city. It's actually one of the most difficult things you could do. So I mean, I used to have like, so this also cell phones. I had like, I did hundreds of these things. So you know, I don't have to show them anymore, but you know, all I do is show one of these. And also when you're starting out, you might not be able to do this. You might only be able to do a Coke can, or you know, Coke cans are good, or it's just physical objects you can hold in your hand. If you model that act with precision, precision and replicating life is what I want to see out of like beginner reels. I don't expect you to get it to be at this level of intricacy. You know, these points line up, the flow is right, all these things that are actually really difficult to do. Even if you just model like you know, your pen, like your head. Okay, did my machine stop right there?
No, I think my screen somewhat froze momentarily. I'm sorry about that.
No, my internet will sometimes do that here.
Oh, that's right.
Where did I leave off? Where did I?
Oh, I think it would be kind of nice to get some context for the razor itself, and we're starting to get some questions in from our participants as well.
Okay, I mean, those are for jobs where the advertising is the job, the product is the razor. So these are all product commercials. So anything you see a product on TV that spins around, or you know, there's somebody's going to be 3D modeling that if there isn't a CAD file, to, you know, they want that to look good. So even if there was a real object, instead of taking a picture of one, they might just render one just because it's easier to get the imperfections out, or adjust lighting a certain way. So that's, if you're staying in New York, that's actually that's a very common, expect that to be your bread and butter for a long time. And if you can't handle replicating a product perfectly, then having then going to the scale of what I would say designing and adding levels of intricacy to to the other stuff is actually, it wouldn't end up being you, just because like if you can't handle the easy stuff, I can't trust you the hard stuff. So it's actually, that's actually like, I would say like, I mean, granted, like developer sculpting skills, like independent of that, that's like physical observation. You could sculpt whatever you want, but I would say like for if you're developing your reel, I would say that stuff is you got to do that on the side. But you like, in order to get your stuff, get your foot in the door of working somewhere professionally, it's the main thing is to be able to observe and replicate at first.
That's very nice.
Yeah, the other stuff is like your eye for detail and all that stuff. So if you see like adjust, so in 3D, like all we have is triangles. So if you, how do you differentiate between a plastic square versus a metal square versus a wooden square? It's if I were to make a cube, if I were to make a cube with different materials, if you were not to like drop a material on there in texturing, if you were to model a cube, how would you show me the difference? And almost all the answer is almost always in how the edges touch each other, like how much gap, how much like how the bevel transitions look. So something that's really sharp and tight might be made of metal, because that can happen with metal. But if you made that with a injection molded plastic, you can't do that, because the plastic won't allow you to get that close. It'll be a rounded edge or slightly rounded edge. If it was smaller, it would be one thing. If it was bigger, it would behave a certain way. If it was old, they didn't have a certain technology at a certain time, they would only be, so if you could look at an object and you could just sort of like adjust your polygons just a little bit, just to how you could just make that adjustment, and then all of a sudden it looks realistic. That's your training. And people will want it to look good, but they won't tell you how to do it. They'll expect you to know that and bring it to them, or else why would they? Yeah, so
thank you for that, Paul. So I'm conscious that you've worked both in features, you've worked in episodic as well, and also in commercials, and you're now working within an entirely different space, which is that of games.
Yeah.
What does your day-to-day look like within that space?
Well, my day-to-day is not, it's not very I mean, I can't say it's a very typical.
Not traditional.
It's not even traditional within the game industry. It's because I'm at Amazon, and they're a tech company that is making games, versus other game companies are game companies that, like, to begin with. So so the DNA is a little bit different over here. So my day-to-day, depending on the size of the studio, you might do a whole character, like start to finish and all this other stuff, because of the size of like it's not just this game. Every game is getting bigger, right? Like nobody wants to play with just, it's not side scrollers anymore. Everybody plays like the epicness of a game is always escalating. So what I'm doing is a lot of the concept sculpting these days. So or I guess translation from the 2D. So there might be a 2D, but then that's almost like a suggestion. I work it out, and I work it out / take it to the next level. So it might look only, it might, I might just look at it and be like, okay, that works in 3D, that doesn't work in 3D, and I'm going to interpret it and make it cool. And that is, and then because there's not enough people on the team, then we have to like send out the busy work of like turning it into a game asset for the next part. So they used to be all in house for, but I feel like more and more studios,
You're considering Outsourcing.
will have to outsource at least part of their pipeline.
Right.
And this is true for, well, actually, this is true for pretty much every industry. It's not just games. Like, it's pretty much like, if you have, you can sort of divide your game up into like your, like the talent level that you can't, we actually really need this talent level to be good, and we need them to make decisions. And then there's like the filler work that that can be outsourced, because you can't outsource stuff that is like highly creative and decision making, because that's a recipe for disaster. So that's why there's certain, like, yes, you have to get your basic skill levels up, but eventually you have to make that transition into like adding value to like bring, like, because if I was making exactly what's on that drawing of the concept, then I'm doing it right. I'm also doing it wrong, because if I'm doing exactly what's on there, then they probably don't need me specifically. I'm also like, I'm actually ignoring a lot of it and adding my own spin on it, because I'm like, okay, I can make it better this way. And then that might not work, but usually it does. So that's your sort of artistic vision, and not filter, but like, this is what you bring to the table. This is your artistic integrity and prowess and all that stuff. So yeah, that's so I mean, it is harder and harder to well, not it's harder, but it's hard to like it's hard to get these like super like senior positions, just because like, oh, guess what, now there's more. Before you had the junior level like ladder that you could go do, but now there's like more of that stuff is getting outsourced. So there's the gap. It's either the jump is either like I don't know, it's hard. There's less than like in between jobs that there used to be, I guess.
Thank you. So you obviously mentioned, how you enter the industry, like let's say as a junior. You were mentioning this earlier. Now, Kwame is wondering, do you use Blender? What are some of the softwares that you are effectively recommending that those who are wanting to enter the industry could focus on?
Okay.
And learn? Like what are some of the suggestions that you might have for them?
Blender, if you want to learn Blender, go ahead, but I would not only know Blender. Blender you're not only allowed to only know. That's Blender is like, a lot of people like Blender has a lot of cool options, like has a lot of cool features, and it is very powerful. Blender does not play well in teams. It's like a lone wolf program. So there's so many cool, like really good artists who use Blender as for their one person projects, but there's really no large scale team project Blender using. There's individual people on big teams that use Blender, but they have to spit out their files and then share it. So there's Blender users on my team as well, and they're very good, but they the result is a game polygon mesh. That's not just because they make it with Blender. You can't actually, like, a lot of the cool features are Blender native, so you can't like just transfer it out, because just because their rendering engine can handle it doesn't mean it shares well, because then otherwise you would have to. So I would recommend, I mean, as bad as Maya is and painful as Maya is, it's unfortunately the English language of CG.
I've never
so
heard it described that way before.
I mean, English has like got like stupid like rules, and it's like, why conjugations and all that stuff. But it's just the user base is just too wide. I would say and if you want to get into real time, I would say the most important one to learn is Unreal. If anything, Unreal is important, and because I feel like real time is definitely the future. So
I know.
so especially if you're young and could pick things up fast, there's no reason not to look into Unreal. If you're more technical, Unity. If you don't care about the way it looks and you care more about how games are like work on a more engineering, software engineering like level, then I would say Unity is your jam. If you want to do modeling, it would be Maya / ZBrush Maya.
Okay.
If you want to do rendering, it's at least Arnold. V-Ray, yeah, sure. V-Ray, Arnold. But I guess it's less important because I feel like with rendering, once you get good at that, I mean, I would say you could choose between Arnold, RenderMan, V-Ray, but you need to know Nuke to comp it. So it's a Nuke / one of the preeminent renderers. Yeah, so that's.
Thank you. That's really great advice, and I think you really broke it down really nicely for our audience members as to like what's a really great software to focus on if they're focusing on a specific skill set. Azon asks a really interesting question. Actually, that's something I wonder about as well about you. Azon's wondering, would you ever sell any of your personal works as an NFT?
Oh yeah. So yeah, no, I've already gotten down this rabbit hole. Yeah. I haven't caught up with you yet, but yeah, that was a big thing. Yeah, the NFTs are huge, and I feel like they all right. There's a couple of things. The environment thing, that's crap. That's not true. Don't like every person every time there's one comment about NFT, there's like 4 comments talking about the environment. That's debunked. That's not true. There's a potential for NFTs to be completely game changing to the art world, because forever all digital art was never, you were never able to like make, there was never, you can never like say this is the one. You can only, there's no hard copy of digital art. So only now can you digitize art. So thinking about like TikTok, like throughout history, like how many times have dancers been paid? Like almost none. But TikTok is like a multi-billion-dollar company that they make half their money off of dances. There is value in the arts, but you just couldn't digitize it and couldn't sell it before as the one. So if you were to like own a piece of the moonwalk back in the day, that would have been great. I would love to own a piece of that. But so there's ways to now like so having the crypto, the blockchain describe verify like the value of something is great, but this is at a point in time that is like I said the niche users of the internet back in the early days. I didn't want to say it, but now I'll say it now. Like it was nerds and perverts at the time. It was like very like, and then we're at the point now where it's like it's potential is great, but it's also full of scammers, and like it's also hasn't sorted itself out in the NFT world. So the potential is real, but so is the pitfalls. So yeah, so one thing that people might not realize is you have to. So if you have a bank, if you want to withdraw money, you just say go to the ATM, you pop in your card, and you withdraw your money, because the bank it costs money for the bank to do that, but they don't charge you because they already they take money off of you off of other ways. They make money off of you anyway, so they sort of like waive these little fees. But on a blockchain is decentralized, so every little squeak and fart is like you have to pay for. So if you want to put like, you want to exchange money, if you want to like, if you want to make a purchase, make a sell, make every single thing is costs money, and is actually very expensive. So if anything is like, well, we definitely have to have some money to make an NFT and then sell an NFT, and then you have to market, you have to do the marketing to find somebody to want to buy your NFT. With this said, it is it's not pegged to quality. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. It's the type of person who is like crypto rich is not necessarily artistic. They're not art history students, nor do they care about that stuff. They might be, but that's not necessarily the case. So so who knows what, there's no like obvious answer on who or what will buy what for how much. So I mean, look into it. You don't have to get caught up into it yet, just because it'll be around for a long time. I mean, once the opportunity for making money for yourself forever is on there, it's going to be on there forever. Oh, actually, we didn't talk about this. I guess for those who don't know, the reason that NFTs are so amazing and so fair. So I consider NFTs like fair trade art, like fair trade bananas, but like art. The reason that it's fair trade is like, if I sell you, Kat, a digital copy of my art for $50, and you sell it for $5 million, if in traditional art world, I would not see any money. But in the crypto art world, if you sell for $5 million, I get 10% of $5 million forever, because the blockchain is forever. So it's fair trade, because whoever you sell it to, I always will profit because I actually made it. So so getting a cut of your, that's actually very fair. It's happening in music as well. So there's that platform that at first it was debunked, but then it got purchased by Square. I don't know. I think it was I forgot the name of it, but they're doing pretty much like NFTs, but for music. So you could sell like editions of your songs. It's like you're pretty much going to be having NFT related things for all of arts, not just one. Including writing. It's whatever thing that you couldn't sell a digital copy of, now you will. So
I appreciate you putting that into perspective for me, because I didn't think of it that way, and I myself am not as familiar with NFTs. So
that's what I wanted to tell you. I was trying to get a hold of you to tell you about this, but yeah.
we will discuss. I'm excited to hear more.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I'm glad that somebody was already on it.
Already thinking about it.
Yeah, now there's like a whole thing of like getting invites and which platform. It's kind of messy, and it's not cheap, because it's pegged to the price of either Ethereum or whatever thing that, depending on the platform. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. Amanda asks a really great question as well. Like, she's wondering, how do you suppose one can grow or train their level of observation?
Mm-hmm.
And how can it deviate from realism to more of a style?
Don't worry about the style. Like, really don't. If you like, the style is something you can't even help. The style will just be. Also, like, the style is something once you do something enough times, it'll just sort of like, can you help what handwriting you have? I mean, you can and you can't, right? If you just let, if you just
can't help it.
Yeah, I know exactly. The cat writes words like a robot writes tiny little squares. But you can't really help your handwriting. You can't really help your style. Don't worry about developing a style. It'll happen. Just worry about being like, observation is basically quite simple. Just observe and either draw it, sculpt it, paint it, whatever. Just do the exercise. That's it. And I mean, that sounds stupid. So it's a lot. That is kind of it. And then just like, left to right, A, B, and that doesn't look like it. Why not? And it's just like, it's like, well, well, it's kind of like evolution. It's like, you know, it's slower than you think. It's because, but that's what it is. Why does evolution happen? It's just like reproduction over a long time. So, and then there's some deviations, and that's kind of that's kind of like how, like, the reproduction over and over again is like you observing and practicing, and then like the style that comes out is like the mutations that happen. And then you, now all of a sudden you draw like a cat, or you draw like a dog, and it's just, that's, oh well, yeah.
Kind of, you know, I'm conscious of the fact that, you know, your wife is also in a specific industry and you're both working remotely at this time. Kind of wanted to get a sense from your perspective how the remote life has treated you.
So with thanks to Kat, I was the only one that was able to work remotely in the year 2012. So I actually know how to work remotely. Other people don't. As long as you have the discipline and the internet bandwidth, I don't see why it's not a thing. I mean, now that everybody knows it's doable, just because it's been proven, right? So, yeah, there will be more and more places that will allow it, and not only allow it, but okay. So, depending on the talent pool, remember I said that New York wasn't high end for many years. It it's so if you're a local company in New York, and then you keep like, if you want to do good work, then like all of a sudden all you're dealt with is like the local, not high end pool. But what are you gonna do? You could hire somebody, fly them in from another city, or now you just work remotely. So and what if somebody is like, you know, cheap and good from another country? This will just happen as the pressures of whatever, like of reality will happen, and it'll just, you know. So this means you could work you could work somewhere, you know, far away. You could apply places that are far, on purpose, on knowing that you won't ever work in there. You know, it's, I mean, some places have government protection, other places don't. You know, for better or worse, this is, working remotely is definitely here to stay. So you could, yeah.
We thank you for that. We also got some comments from our participants saying that they really appreciated how you're keeping it real with us all here this afternoon, and your transparency and honesty is much appreciated.
Yeah, I can't help that. Yeah.
I guess I wanted to sort of ask you, I'm conscious that, you know, we are winding down with our time together. What is, you know, we obviously touched upon software advice for those who would like to get into the industry. Are there other thoughts that you might have, and recommendations you have for, you know, some of the younger generations, like our younger participants who are eager to become a modeler, to become a sculptor, to model some of the characters that you've shared with us today?
Yeah.
What are some words of wisdom you can offer this space?
Okay, so so when I started modeling, it was all hard surface, polygon modeling. My training in college was in drawing and painting, and figures. It took more than 10 years for the software to catch up to my artistic ability. So now the gap is just flat. It's not about how the software is less. I mean, yes, you do need to know the software. That is true. You can't. That's there's no way around that. But the part that is more difficult, and I consider more valuable, is artistic ability. So you know, if your drawing skills are not great, then you'll plateau. There's you know, because like what are you observing? If you're looking at it from one angle, I'm looking at it in all angles. It's like, yeah. So traditional skills is what's going to make you better. Like, you know, that is like, that could take the form of anything. I would say, but if ever you feel like you're not improving that much, just like step back and just work on some artistic skill. You know, if you like in Photoshop, you take the curves and you erase everything. That's like, you know, you bump up the colors. It's like that with like traditional skills. It will just take, you know, raise all your everything up when you become better at traditional skills. I don't, you know, I'm not young, but I still keep that up. So, and I wish I could do it more. So it's not even like just because you know, hit a certain level that you know, you don't do that. If anything, you do it. You actually the better I get, the worse I think I am. So it's actually yeah. So it's not like, oh yeah, I'm there. No, actually I feel like I'm further away than where I want to be than ever. So it's just like
Oh,
yeah, I know it's like discouraging to hear, but it's
well, no, I suspect you're just, you know, it's always just nice to have that ability to continue to challenge yourself. And I mean, I feel like I've always seen you do that throughout your career over the years.
yeah, and I did get better every year too. So you know, I mean, certain years I made bigger leaps than others. You know, but yeah, it's true. You know, you just have to just sort of keep. It's like that Shawshank Redemption thing. You know, it's like you sort of dig a hole in the wall enough times and you know, tunnel yourself out.
I appreciate that reference, Paul. Well, listen, it was such a genuine pleasure having you here. You're one of my dearest friends, and it was great to be able to share you with the rest of our participants here and have them learn a little bit about how your career has evolved. And we genuinely hope that we can stay in touch and have you back.
Okay, that's it, right?
That's it. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Okay,
So
no
we
problem.
look forward to staying in touch, and I will, as I like to say, pass the baton on to the lovely Lisa and the equally lovely Lyndon. Thank you all very much, and thanks for sharing the space with us today.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's so awesome to have you here today and hear about your career. And thank you for sharing your Jurassic World. Yes, I was the one that said I wanted to go to the Jurassic era. So your character work really brings me right there. So amazing.
Yes, it was amazing hearing from you, Paul. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
So Lyndon, we are going to be moving into our closing. And just to know, we are ending a little bit early, just to, you know, let you know. But we've been in connection with our opening ritual. We wanted to have you think about how you would travel to that chosen destination. So whether you chose the magical forest, the Jurassic era like me, we're going to invite you now to create a movement or gesture that represents how you get there. So think about it for a moment. And Lyndon, you and I are going to model while everybody else at home joins us. On the count of 3, we're going to find our movement or our gesture representing how we get to that environment. You ready, Lyndon?
Ready.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. How are you getting to where you're going, Lyndon?
So I'm picturing it kind of like me flying like a superhero, kind of like man with one arm.
Nice, I love it. And where were you headed to? What was your destination?
I actually said a planet out of space.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, I was headed to the Jurassic era and I was in my time machine and I was holding on because it was like shaking and going super fast. Well, I hope you guys all had fun at home coming up with your movement or gesture that represents where you're headed to.
Alrighty, well, it looks like we've come to the end of today's group. And please remember to stay connected with us through our website as well as our social media. And again, thank you for joining us in the Made in New York Animation Project Mega Group. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, Lyndon. Bye, all.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.